Alright, just another quick update. Putting together a PC that I hope is going to be able to run at least one of these screens, maybe both. Here it is. I've just got this up and running finally. I've been mucking about with a bunch of bits I got off eBay essentially. Fairly old school. This is a Socket 775 PC. It's making a heck of a racket at the minute. I think that's the power supply. I think it's a fairly good power supply. It's a modular power supply, but it's making a bit of a noise, so I might have to, if that's doing my head in too much, I might have to replace that eventually. But it is a high performance motherboard, and I've got a selection of CPUs. I've got another 775 motherboard, which is why I've got so many CPUs. I've got a Core 2 E8600, which will overclock easily to 4 GHz. But I've also got a couple of Core 2 Extreme Quad CPUs. I think the top of the range CPUs have got a, I can't remember, 6850, QX6850 or a 6950, and a QX9770, which is what I've got running here. Seems to be working okay. It's running at stock, well, more or less 3.4 GHz at the minute. We might get that to go to 4 if we're lucky. Got Windows 7 on there at the moment. I'm about to swap that out for Windows 10, basically because this is not a lot. I don't have a spare license for Windows 7, and it's hard to get a retail copy of Windows 7 these days, or at least to make sure you're actually buying a genuine retail copy. So we've gone for the full Monty, paid full retail price for Windows 10, and then we put the FSX Steam Edition on and start from scratch. I've got a feeling that power supply is quieting down a little bit since I've been talking, so that's hopeful. The only other thing about this PC, I bought this as a job lot off as a near working PC off eBay, basically because it's got the high performance motherboard. It had the Core 2 Extreme CPU already installed, and it's got a passably good, I think, video card. It's an AMD card, which I don't have any real experience with, and it's an obsolete one, but it's actually got 5 outputs. 4 of those are mini display port, 1 is a DVI, so I'm hoping that card's going to comfortably drive 1 screen, and if I'm lucky, maybe 2, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay, so software stage 1 is complete. We've got Windows 10 installed on the new PC, and we've got the FSX Steam Edition installed, and that seems to work out of the box reasonably well. We get passable performance with a single screen and with no tweaking to date. So there's a couple of ways we can go next, but I think the first thing to do is plug in the second screen, see if we can get 2 screens with acceptable performance in 2 separate windows. Then we'll start worrying about things like Orbix software. I got the Rex Texture Direct 4 bundled with the FSX. I think that was a good saving, and I'm going to need that because I use Rex textures on the main PC for cloud textures primarily, but also the water animations. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with the Orbix stuff. I can't buy all the Orbix software that I've got on the FSX PC for the side views PC, and particularly if I'm going to have 2 side view PCs, if the performance isn't up to it with one PC, that's just going to be prohibitively expensive. So I'm going to have to be very selective with the Orbix stuff. I might start off with the free the demos. So now we have both screens running. This is obviously not the orientation that the screens are going to be used in when they're live, but I've just got them set up side by side for convenience here, and we've got FSX running with both screens. My initial very rough experiments are quite encouraging. Got FSX set up here with the trike. Just a very rough experiment with 2 views. So we've got a forward view and a kind of a near 90-degree side view. Of course it doesn't look right here because of the screen orientation. And on the ground here at Friday Harbour we're showing somewhere in the region of 35 to 40 frames per second. Obviously this is all default scenery, very conservative weather. But you know, it tells me that we're kind of in the ballpark. It may actually be possible to get these two views running in some fashion on a single PC, which I wasn't optimistic about. So we'll have to see about that. Obviously once we get Orbix software and weather into the equation, things might not be quite so favourable. But of course the other thing we can do is we can play with the resolutions. We could run these monitors at a lower res, maybe at 720p, and we might pick up some performance that way. So again, it's all up for experiment. What I'm going to do next probably is install these screens in the cockpit and then think about working on the synchronization. So that's going to look at getting a hold of OpusFSI and seeing if we can make that work. So here we are, everything in place. We've just rounded off with this very crude experimental view. I've got the twin Otter on the main PC, and then I've just got the default Cessna 172 providing the side views, roughly lined up. It's very crude, but it just gives a bit of an impression of where we're going. Got a lot of work to do on how to make the side views work properly. The colour balance is still completely wrong. All those white runway markings on the left and right panels are currently grey, but there's plenty of scope in adjusting the monitors. I just haven't got around to playing with any of that yet. That would be a bit premature, I think. Next up, I think, is to get hold of Opus, install that, and to think about getting the synchronization working. Once we've got that going, we can work in earnest on the generating the views, and then we can go flying.